PCL 650 presents your source for leading-edge news and information on today's hottest products and services. This is Experts on Call.
This is home. Now I'm finally where I belong.
Hey, and welcome to the show. Today we're talking about StrataLife. What we do is we have Key Pacific Property Management, and they bring along with a bunch of trusted industry experts and professionals to come together to provide high-quality, reputable strata-related services, and the show is called StrataLife. So Drew Grout is here from Key Pacific Property Management. Drew, welcome back.
Thank you.
And Key Pacific has been here in Vancouver since 1998. Also joining us in studio is Jennifer Neville, lawyer at Hammerberg. I wanted to say Hammerberger. Have you ever heard that before?
I've heard that before,
I
yes.
bet. And Eric, I'm going to get you to say your last name for me so I don't mess it up.
Lauritsen.
Okay, that's what I thought. And he's a senior project manager at Applied Coatings and Restoration. Welcome, everybody, to the show.
Thank you.
We're going to have a great conversation about StrataLife. And Drew, you're a regular here. We talk about this all the time. So many people at some stage in their life are going to live in a strata. Sometimes it's before they maybe buy a detached home, or they're selling a detached home and downsizing to a strata, or maybe they decide to live in a strata their whole home ownership, right?
Yep.
So it's very important. Somebody, I'm sure in your family, has stories about dealing with stratas and annual general meetings and people in stratas. And so why don't you tell us, to start with, a little bit about Key Pacific. What do you do? You're the management company for these stratas, right?
Yeah. So we've been providing a variety of property management services since 1998, but we focus on strata management. And that could be small commercial strata management as well. So our role is to work with the elected council of the Strata Corporation to help them with their duties in administering the common property and in the business of Strata Corporation on a daily basis.
And sometimes it can be all in, and other times it can be just some part of it, right? Like some stratas you do everything for them, and some you just do some. Is that the way it works?
A lot of that depends on the participation of the particular council. Some are more participative than others,
right?
Because they want to be.
And I guess the size of the strata too, right?
Yeah, that plays a part too. That plays a part. The larger ones require more attention, obviously. Smaller ones, hopefully less. But even some of the smaller ones require a lot of attention, too.
All right. So Jennifer Neville, lawyer at Hammerberg. What do you specialize in the area of law when it comes to stratas? What do you bring to the table?
So we're a firm of 20 lawyers located in South Vancouver, but we have a small strata property group, and we advise both owners and strata corporations with respect to all aspects of the Strata Property Act.
Are you getting in the middle of the bickering that happens often with stratas?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you try to play referee, or you just lay out what the rules are?
Well, it depends on the scenario, and depends on what the owners and what the participants are interested in accomplishing. So we try as best as possible to give really practical solutions to make conflict less of an issue.
And do you lean on somebody like Key Pacific to use their expertise on what they've done in other stratas?
In any strata situation, there are a number of experts that work together in order to accomplish a goal. So absolutely, property managers are important as well.
Yeah, we lean on them.
Yeah, I bet. It's a two-way street, I'm sure. Now, Eric, with Applied Coatings and Restoration, you're dealing with the envelope of the building, I'm sure, right?
We don't actually deal with the envelope of the building. Our specialty is the parkade. We do a variety of different things related to concrete floor coatings, as the name would indicate. We also do restoration work on concrete as well, too. But we do everything in relation to concrete floor coatings from low end up to high end. But our one specialty is doing parkade coatings, which is a big part of condo complexes today. That's our one real specialty.
I guess a lot of people have the misconception that when concrete is hard, it's hard as concrete, and you think you can just leave it, and it's not the case. It needs to be looked after.
It does need to be looked after. It does wear. It'll soak up water. It does take maintenance. There are things that have to be done to concrete to protect it over time, because if you don't, you're going to pay for it down the road.
All right, let's get into the mailbag. This is always fun. The first one says, I'm always attending the AGM, the annual general meeting for my building. There's one person who comes with a dozen or more written proxies from absentee owners and outvotes me. I think this isn't fair. Can we pass a bylaw requiring owners attend in person in order to vote at an annual general meeting? We're going to the lawyer for this one.
Okay.
What do you think?
You know, that's a question I get pretty often. And the answer is that the Strata Property Act actually has a section which enables an owner to appoint a proxy, and the proxy can do at the meeting anything that owner could do, including voting and speaking at the meeting. So, in my opinion, any bylaw which tried to overturn that section of the Strata Property Act would not be enforceable.
Now, we heard on one of the other shows, Drew, you might remember this, that somebody owns several units in a building, like an investor had dozens of units in a building. So do they get that many more votes?
Each strata lot gets a vote. So
Right.
if they own 10 strata lots, they'll have 10 votes.
So it works, I guess, like a company. If you have a majority of the shares in the company, if you own more units than anybody else, you're going to have a much bigger vote, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's just democracy.
Yeah. Often in a brand new strata, the developer at the first AGM will still hold a number of units. And in some cases, they can swing the votes. Often they'll decide to kind of step away and not exercise that right and let the strata kind of run its own business.
Okay, the next question says, last year some rude and noisy people moved into the strata lot above me. I've complained to my strata council about the noise, but nothing that they have done has stopped the noise. I'm thinking that I should stop paying my strata fees until they actually do something. Is this a good idea to not pay your strata fees?
Well, in a word, no. I don't think it's a good idea. The strata corporations, obviously, for obvious reasons, need to raise money in order to pay for their expenses, and special levies and strata fees are the way to accomplish that. The Strata Property Act really acknowledges that important aspect of making payment, and it creates some pretty significant remedies for strata corporations. So a strata corporation, when an owner hasn't paid their special levies, can actually lien a strata lot.
It can backfire on you, right?
Absolutely. And they can even get an order for sale of the strata lot to satisfy those outstanding fees.
So what is your, and when you go in and play referee in these situations, and Drew, you've experienced this many times, you've got a noisy neighbor. What do you do? You've tried to get them to stop. What can you do?
Well, the Strata Council has a duty to enforce its bylaws. So the Strata Council should be looking to see what the bylaw says, and it probably has a bylaw that says no noise. And it should be giving notice and complying with the Act as far as giving notice and fining the owner if they determine that there is a breach of the bylaw. And they may have to take additional steps outside of that as well.
Yeah, noise is often a challenge for stratas. In many cases, it's he said, she said.
Because one person's level of noise is different. Like, I mean, if you put hardwood floors in and you're a woman and you wear high heel shoes, you'd have the clippity-clop upstairs. Well, that isn't that noisy to one person, but another person, it's annoying. Yeah,
the difficulty for stratas, for councils, is trying to determine what's reasonable. And what's reasonable for you may not be reasonable for me. But you know, in having the parties talk about it, often you can resolve it. Sometimes it's a matter of what you're doing is creating a nuisance, and you can do something to change that. And we suggest you do this. And if they don't do that, then they're kind of getting on the bad side of things. And sometimes it goes to the lawyers to. Initiated by an owner suing the strata for not upholding the bylaw or something of that sort.
Well, this dovetails into the next question from our mailbag. It says, I'm a president of a strata council in a great building with great people. There is, however, one exception. This person doesn't sound like a lot of fun. One owner parks in the no parking zones, lets his dog off leash, and causes noise. Over the last 2 years, he's racked up about $5,000 in fines. We called our lawyer last year to see what could be done, but the lawyer advised that the legal fees would be more than the amount outstanding. Is there anything we can do? Dum, dum, dum.
Well, I have to say I've given that advice over the years, and it's difficult for strata corporations to deal with that issue where it costs more than you could actually recover. But there is something that's very exciting for strata owners now and for strata corporations as well. The BC government also heard that concern with people who needed to be able to afford to to make claims like that. Now there's a new civil resolution tribunal, and it's available through online sources. You can go to the website BC Civil Resolution Tribunal, and it's designed for owners and strata corporations to make claims without having to use a lawyer. So
this is a sort of a offshoot of sort of small claims court in a way, kind of, right?
It's totally different than small claims court, but yes, it's got
similar
the same
idea.
goals.
Right,
yeah.
right. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's interesting. Now, but then again, the collective group might think it's worth it to hire a lawyer to make this end, even though it might cost more than the $5,000 in fines. To get rid of the one bad apple might be worth it, right?
It might be worth it, and certainly a lawyer could help with that process. But with the changes that the BC government has created now, instead of being in BC Supreme Court, it's going to be in the Civil Resolution Tribunal, and there would be a lawyer helping the strata corporation or the owner through that process.
And less expensive.
Less expensive, hopefully.
Okay.
Sometimes the fines just don't remedy the situation.
And we talked about this last time, Drew, when you were on about there's a 2-year window, right? So if you don't collect the fines after 2 years, the statute of limit, or whatever you call it, the limitations has passed, you can only collect. So if this person drags their feet for 2 years, you can't get the $5,000.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
so maybe they know the rules.
So time is not your friend in this case. It's better to get going on it as soon as possible.
Okay. The next question says, my building has a no dog bylaw, but I really want to get a dog. Last week I was in the elevator and I noticed that an owner had a dog. Does this mean that I can get a dog too? Me too. What do you think? I
think that the owner has to be careful about what the reason for that dog, why the dog is there in the first place. It could very well be that particular owner has a medical disability that enables them to have a dog, like a service dog or something else. So it would be really probably improper to assume that that dog was permitted by the strata corporation. That person may have an exemption to that dog bylaw.
Or would it be allowed to dog sit for a weekend? Would that be allowed?
Well, it depends on the bylaw, but
right.
Most bylaws that I've seen would not allow a dog sitting for a weekend.
Because people just take their chances, right? I'll look after this dog for the weekend. The dog will be gone, and I'll see what I can do, right?
Yeah, that's right. And, the other thing is that you can't assume that because there's a dog in there that there aren't already actions being taken against that owner and the dog, whether they be fines or even a court action to have the dog removed.
The next question says, I just bought an older townhouse in a strata corporation. Before I moved in, the kitchen and bathroom both needed to be gutted and replaced. My contractor says that I have to get consent from the strata council before I start work. I own the townhouse, and I can't understand why I need permission from anyone else to renovate it. Is my contractor correct?
That's interesting. I get that comment all the time because people do think, they've spent the money to buy their home and they have a certain pride in their ownership. They don't understand why they have to comply with other people's rules. But a strata corporation is very different than a single family home. And most strata corporations have bylaws that require the strata council to give consent to various alterations, including alterations for piping, for example, as well as flooring. So very likely that person is required to get consent and should do that.
Okay, one quick one before we have to take a break. There's an elderly lady in her building who has been having some health problems. Recently, she's been using a wheelchair. We have stairs leading into our lobby, and she wants the rest of us to pay for a ramp. I feel terrible for her, but I think that the rest of us should not have to pay for the cost. What should we do?
Well, the Human Rights Code protects people with physical disabilities, and that includes a duty to accommodate by the strata corporation. And so that could very well include paying for the cost of the ramp.
But the ramp would be there forever too, right? If anybody else needed it.
And anybody else could use the ramp as well. What I would suggest for that strata corporation is sit down, talk to this lady and figure out whether there's an affordable solution which is going to work for everybody. So maybe not a gold encrusted wheelchair ramp, but something that's going to work.
Something basic, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You're listening to StrataLife, and we are going to take a quick break. Joining us in studio today is Drew Grout, Director of Strata Services at Key Pacific Property Management. And you just heard the voice of Jennifer Neville, lawyer at Hammerberg Lawyers, and Eric Lauridsen, Senior Project Manager at Applied Coatings and Restoration. We'll continue our conversation next on CIL 650.
This is Experts on Call on CIL 650.